The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Marcus Thompson pushed through the glass doors of Elite Fitness on a Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago. At 73 years old, his withered hands gripped a faded gym bag that had seen better decades, and his worn sneakers squeaked softly against the polished floor. The morning crowd was already in full swing, young professionals squeezing in workouts before heading to their corporate jobs, college students with their protein shakes and wireless earbuds, and the usual collection of fitness influencers setting up their phones to record their latest workout routines. Marcus moved slowly toward the locker room, his gait deliberate but steady. He'd been coming to this particular gym for 3 months now, ever since moving to the city to be closer to his daughter Sarah and her family. Back home in rural Alabama, he'd trained at a small community center where everyone knew everyone, where respect came naturally, and where age was viewed as wisdom rather than weakness. This place was different, all chrome and mirrors, loud music, and people who seemed more interested in documenting their workouts than actually working out. As he changed into his simple gray t-shirt and black shorts, Marcus could hear the familiar sounds filtering in from the main floor, weights clanking, treadmills whirring, and the occasional grunt of exertion. But more prominently, he heard the laughter. It had become a routine soundtrack to his visits here, though he'd never let it show that he noticed. Emerging from the locker room, Marcus surveyed the gym floor. The free weights section was dominated by a group of 20-somethings who had claimed the area as their territory. There was Brad, a wannabe influencer with perfectly styled hair who never seemed to break a sweat despite his theatrical lifting sessions. Next to him stood his sidekick Jake, whose primary job appeared to be holding Brad's phone and offering encouragement that sounded more like worship. Then there was Ashley, a fitness model with a growing social media following who treated every exercise like a photo shoot, and her friend Megan, who spent more time checking her reflection than actually exercising. As Marcus approached the weight rack to select his dumbbells, the snickering began. It started quietly, as it always did, but gradually grew bolder as the group fed off each other's energy. "Look who's back," Brad whispered just loud enough for his friends to hear, flexing his biceps as he caught his reflection in the mirror. "Grandpa's ready for his senior citizen workout." Jake chuckled, adjusting the weight on his barbell. "Maybe we should tell him about the senior center down the street. They probably have a nice shuffleboard court." Ashley rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress her smile as she set up her phone for another recording. "You guys are terrible," she said, though her tone suggested she found their comments more amusing than offensive. Marcus selected a pair of 20-pound dumbbells and moved to a quiet corner of the gym. He'd learned over the past 3 months to find spaces where he could work out without drawing too much attention, though it seemed increasingly difficult as the group's confidence in their mockery grew. He began with shoulder presses, his form textbook perfect despite his age. Each movement was controlled, deliberate, and spoke to decades of muscle memory, but to the casual observer, especially those predisposed to judge, he simply looked like an old man going through the motions. "Check out that form," Brad said, loud enough now that several other gym members glanced over. "My grandfather moves weights like that when he's trying to open a pickle jar." The laughter spread beyond their core group now. A few other young members joined in, their phones discreetly pointed in Marcus's direction. In today's social media culture, everything was content, and an elderly black man struggling with what they perceived as lightweight seemed like prime material for a viral video. Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest that came not from exertion, but from the weight of their judgment. He'd experienced this kind of treatment before, though never quite so publicly or persistently. In his younger days, he might have confronted them directly, but at 73, he'd learned to pick his battles more carefully. Besides, he had his own reasons for being here, reasons that went far deeper than their shallow understanding could comprehend. He moved through his routine methodically, lateral raises, chest presses, tricep extensions. Each exercise was performed with the precision that came from a lifetime of training, though his choice of weights seemed conservative to those watching. What they couldn't see were the 3 surgeries on his right shoulder, the arthritis in his knees that flared up on humid days like this one, or the careful balance he maintained between staying strong and avoiding injury. "Hey, old-timer," Jake called out, emboldened by his growing audience. "You sure you don't want to try some heavier weights? We could spot you if you're worried about getting hurt." Several gym members pulled out their phones now, sensing that something was building toward a viral moment. The gym's ambient noise seemed to quiet as more people tuned into the unfolding drama. Marcus set down his weights and turned to face the group. His expression remained calm, but there was something in his eyes that should have given them pause, a quiet strength that had nothing to do with the weight he could lift. I appreciate the offer, Marcus said, his voice steady and dignified, but I'm quite comfortable with my routine. Brad stepped forward, his chest puffed out like a peacock displaying his plumage. Come on, man, don't you want to show these young folks what the older generation is made of? Or are you just here for the air conditioning? The laughter grew louder now, and Marcus could see gym staff members beginning to take notice of the commotion. Part of him wanted to walk away, to finish his workout in peace and dignity. But another part of him, the part that had never backed down from a challenge in 7 decades of life, stirred to life. You know what? Marcus said, setting down his dumbbells with deliberate care. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is time to show what this old man is made of. The crowd that had been casually observing suddenly pressed closer, phones held high, anticipating either an embarrassing failure or an unexpected triumph. The gym's normal routine ground to a halt as word spread that something interesting was happening in the free weights section. Marcus walked over to the bench press, where Brad had been performing his routine with what appeared to be an impressive amount of weight. 225 pounds sat loaded on the bar, not an extreme amount for a serious lifter, but respectable enough for a fitness influencer's social media content. This what you young folks consider heavy? Marcus asked, running his hand along the bar. Brad's confidence faltered slightly. He'd expected the old man to embarrass himself with much lighter weights, not challenge his personal best. Yeah, well, that's my working weight, he said, though his voice carried less certainty than before. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Mind if I give it a try? The crowd murmured with anticipation. Several people were already posting live updates to their social media accounts, hashtagging their content with phrases like old man at gym and about to go viral. The general expectation was that they were about to witness an elderly man's pride lead to his humiliation, possibly his injury. Jake stepped forward, suddenly concerned about liability. Look, maybe we should start with something lighter. I mean, no offense, but... None taken, Marcus interrupted, positioning himself on the bench. But I think I'll be just fine. As he settled into position, something remarkable happened. The casual, almost shuffling posture that had marked his movements around the gym disappeared entirely. His shoulders set, his core engaged, and his grip on the bar spoke to decades of experience. The transformation was so complete that several observers found themselves questioning what they thought they knew about the man lying before them. Marcus lifted the bar from the rack with smooth confidence, lowering it to his chest with perfect control. The weight that had seemed so impressive on Brad's social media posts appeared almost effortless in the older man's hands. He pressed it up once, twice, 3 times, his breathing steady and controlled. The gymnasium fell silent except for the soft jazz playing through the sound system and the subtle sound of Marcus's controlled breathing. Even the most ardent phone-wielding spectators found themselves lowering their devices, transfixed by the unexpected display of strength and technique. But Marcus wasn't finished. After completing 8 perfect repetitions, he racked the weight and sat up, barely breathing hard. The crowd waited, unsure of what they'd just witnessed, unsure of what would happen next. That was nice, Marcus said conversationally, as if he'd just completed a light warm-up. But I think we can do better than that. He moved to the weight rack and began adding plates to the bar, 45 pounds on each side, then another 45. The numbers climbed steadily, 275, 315, 365 pounds, until the bar groaned under a load that exceeded the personal bests of everyone watching. Brad's face had gone pale. Dude, that's more than I've ever even attempted. Ashley lowered her phone entirely, her influencer persona forgotten in the face of what she was witnessing. Is he really going to try to lift that? The gym's manager had appeared now, drawn by the crowd and concerned about insurance liability. Sir, I'm not sure this is. Marcus raised a gentle hand. I appreciate your concern, but I know my limitations. He smiled, and for the first time, there was something beyond mere kindness in his expression, though they might be different than what folks expect. As he positioned himself under the bar, Marcus's entire bearing changed once again. The careful, measured movements of an elderly man gave way to the fluid confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime perfecting his craft. His hands found their position on the bar with the certainty of muscle memory developed over decades. The weight came off the rack smoothly, and Marcus lowered it to his chest with the same controlled precision he'd shown with the lighter load. The gymnasium held its collective breath as he paused for just a moment, the massive weight resting on his chest. Then he pressed. The bar moved upward steadily, powered by a strength that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than mere muscle. His form remained perfect throughout the lift, his core stable, his breathing controlled, when his arms locked out at the top, completing the rep. The silence in the gym was so complete that the distant sound of traffic from the street outside became audible. Marcus completed 3 more repetitions with the same smooth control, then racked the weight with the casual ease of someone putting away groceries. As he sat up from the bench, the first sound to break the silence was a slow clap from somewhere in the crowd. It started with one person, then another, until the entire gymnasium erupted in applause. Phone cameras that had been ready to capture embarrassment instead recorded something remarkable, a moment of recognition, of respect earned and prejudices shattered. Brad approached hesitantly, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. "Sir, I had no idea. That was incredible. I mean, I've never seen anyone our age, anyone lift like that." Marcus stood and extended his hand. "Marcus Thompson," he said simply. "Brad," the young man replied, shaking hands with newfound respect. "Brad Wilson, and I owe you an apology. We all do." Jake stepped forward as well, looking genuinely embarrassed. "We were completely out of line. Sir, that was amazing." As the crowd began to disperse, people lingered to introduce themselves, to shake Marcus's hand, to express their admiration for what they'd witnessed. But one young woman remained, her eyes bright with recognition. "Excuse me," she said, approaching carefully. "Are you Marcus Thompson? Like, the Marcus Thompson?" Marcus smiled, the first truly relaxed expression he'd worn since entering the gym. "Depends on which Marcus Thompson you're thinking of." "The powerlifter," she said, her voice filled with awe. "3-time world champion, holder of 5 world records, the man they called the Iron Lion." The crowd that had been dispersing suddenly reformed, pressing closer once again. Brad's jaw dropped. "Wait, you're a world champion?" Marcus corrected gently. "That was a long time ago." The young woman, who introduced herself as Patricia, a kinesiology student at the local university, pulled out her phone and began scrolling through search results. "Marcus Thompson, born 1950, won his first world championship in 1975 at age 25, dominated competitive powerlifting for over 2 decades, held the world record in bench press for 15 years. She looked up from her phone, her eyes wide. "Sir, you're a legend. I've studied your training methods in class. Your technique is still taught in sports science programs." Ashley, who had been filming everything, lowered her phone with a look of genuine shame. "We were making fun of you for lifting light weights." Marcus chuckled, the sound warm and without malice. "Well, to be fair, they were light weights. For me, everyone's got their own journey, their own capabilities. I've been lifting for over 50 years, started when I was 16 years old. These days, I'm more focused on staying healthy than breaking records." "But why didn't you say anything?" Jake asked. When we were being disrespectful?" Marcus considered the question thoughtfully. "What would have been the point? Would you have believed me if I just told you who I was? Would that have changed anything about your behavior? Or just made you afraid of consequences?" The group exchanged uncomfortable glances, realizing the truth in his words. "Real strength," Marcus continued, "isn't about how much weight you can lift. It's about how you treat people when you think they can't do anything for you. It's about recognizing that everyone you meet knows something you don't, has experienced something you haven't." Patricia was still scrolling through articles on her phone. "It says here you retired from competition in 1998, but you continued coaching. You trained Olympic athletes, professional football players, even some Hollywood actors for movie roles." "That's right," Marcus confirmed. "Coaching became my passion after competing. There's something special about helping someone discover their own potential." Brad stepped forward again, this time with genuine humility. Would you consider training us? I know we don't deserve it after how we acted, but..." Marcus studied the young man's face, looking for sincerity behind the request. "What makes you think you're ready to train seriously?" "Honestly?" Brad ran his hand through his hair. "Because 5 minutes ago I thought I was hot stuff, and you just showed me I don't know anything. I want to learn, really learn, not just look good for social media." Ashley nodded emphatically. "I've been focused on all the wrong things. I want to understand what real fitness looks like." Marcus looked around at the group of young people surrounding him, the same people who had been mocking him just minutes earlier. Their faces showed a mixture of embarrassment, respect, and genuine curiosity. "Tell you what," he said finally, "I come in here every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. If you're serious about learning, really learning, not just putting on a show, you're welcome to join me. But understand, real training is about discipline, consistency, and respect for the weights, for the process, and for each other. We'll be here, Brad said immediately, and the others nodded in agreement. As the crowd finally began to disperse for real, Patricia lingered behind. Mr. Thompson, could I ask you something? Of course. Why did you come back to the gym after what happened with our behavior? I mean, a lot of people would have found somewhere else to train. Marcus smiled, because running away from ignorance doesn't cure it, and because this old body still needs exercise, regardless of what anyone else thinks about it. He gathered his things and headed toward the locker room, then paused and turned back. Besides, some of my best friendships started with misunderstandings. People aren't usually as bad as their worst moments. That evening, Patricia's video of Marcus's impromptu demonstration went viral across social media platforms. But it wasn't the lift itself that captured people's attention, it was the grace with which he handled the situation, the quiet dignity he maintained throughout, and the lesson he taught without ever raising his voice or seeking revenge. The video sparked conversations about ageism, about assumptions we make based on appearance, and about the dangers of judging people without knowing their stories. Comments poured in from around the world, from former students Marcus had coached, athletes he'd trained, and people who had been inspired by his example of quiet strength. The next Thursday morning, Marcus arrived at Elite Fitness to find Brad, Jake, Ashley, and Megan waiting by the entrance. They'd arrived 30 minutes early, dressed in plain workout clothes without logos or flashy designs, their phones nowhere to be seen. Ready to work, Brad said simply. Marcus nodded approvingly. Then let's begin. Over the following weeks, the dynamic at Elite Fitness changed dramatically. Marcus's corner of the gym became a gathering place for serious training, where proper form mattered more than impressive weights, where progress was measured in consistency rather than social media likes. The group that had once mocked him became his most dedicated students, and their transformation extended far beyond their physical capabilities. Brad discovered that true confidence came from competence rather than appearance. Jake learned to find his own voice instead of just echoing others. Ashley redirected her social media presence toward promoting healthy fitness practices rather than unrealistic standards. And Megan found her own passion for strength training, eventually pursuing certification as a personal trainer herself. But perhaps the most significant change was in the gym's culture overall. Other members began to notice the respectful, supportive atmosphere around Marcus's training group. The mocking and judgment that had once been commonplace gradually gave way to encouragement and mutual support. Marcus never made a big show of his past accomplishments. He didn't hang his championship photos on the wall or demand special recognition. Instead, he led by example, showing up consistently, training with purpose, and treating everyone with the same respect regardless of their ability level. One Saturday morning, several months after their first encounter, Brad approached Marcus with a proposal. I've been thinking about something, he said. You've taught us so much about training, about discipline, about respect, but I feel like we haven't done anything to really show our appreciation. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Your improved behavior and dedication to training is appreciation enough. But I want to do something more, Brad insisted. The gym's owner is looking for someone to teach a senior fitness class. The previous instructor moved away. Would you consider it? Marcus paused in his warm-up routine. You think there's interest in that? Are you kidding? Ashley chimed in, having overheard the conversation. After that video went viral, we've had dozens of older adults asking about training here. They want to learn from the legend himself. The idea intrigued Marcus. He'd missed coaching since retiring, and the thought of helping others in his age group discover the benefits of strength training appealed to him. I suppose I could consider it, he said thoughtfully. 3 weeks later, Elite Fitness hosted its first Golden Years Strength class, led by Marcus Thompson. The inaugural session drew 23 participants, ranging in age from 55 to 81. They came from all walks of life: retired teachers, former construction workers, grandparents wanting to keep up with their grandchildren, and people who had never set foot in a gym before. Marcus approached the class with the same principles he'd always used in coaching: meet people where they are, build on their existing strengths, and focus on sustainable progress rather than dramatic transformations. He taught them proper form, helped them understand their body's capabilities and limitations, and created an environment where age was an asset rather than a liability. The success of the senior fitness program led to other opportunities. Marcus began consulting with gyms across the city on age-inclusive fitness programs. He wrote articles for fitness magazines about training considerations for older adults. He even started a podcast where he interviewed other senior athletes and discussed the mental and physical benefits of staying active throughout life. But through all of this newfound recognition, Marcus never forgot the lesson from that Tuesday morning when a group of young people laughed at what they thought they saw. He made it a point to tell his story not as a tale of revenge or comeuppance, but as an example of how assumptions can blind us to the remarkable people around us. At the gym, Marcus's original training group had evolved into something like a family. Brad had given up his influencer aspirations and started a legitimate fitness coaching business. Jake discovered a talent for nutrition counseling and went back to school to become a registered dietitian. Ashley used her social media platform to promote body positivity and realistic fitness goals. And Megan opened her own studio specializing in strength training for women. They still train together every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning, though their workouts now included members from the senior class, college students studying exercise science, and people of all ages who had heard about the welcoming, supportive atmosphere that Marcus had helped create. One morning, almost a year after their first encounter, the group was finishing their workout when a young man approached hesitantly. He was probably in his early 20s, thin and obviously new to the gym environment. He looked nervous, intimidated by the serious lifters around him. Marcus noticed him immediately and walked over with a welcoming smile. "First time here?" he asked kindly. The young man nodded. "Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Everyone here seems so advanced." "We all started somewhere," Marcus assured him. "What's your name?" "David," the young man replied. "Well, David, how about we show you around, help you get started?" As Marcus began introducing David to the basics of weight training, Brad caught Ashley's eye and smiled. They'd seen this scene play out dozens of times now, Marcus taking someone under his wing, showing them that the gym could be a place of support rather than judgment. But this time was different. This time, they were part of creating that welcoming environment rather than being the obstacle to it. The transformation that had begun with laughter and mockery had evolved into something much more significant, a community built on mutual respect, shared goals, and the understanding that everyone has something to teach and something to learn. And at the center of it all was a 73-year-old man who had taught them that true strength comes not from the weight you can lift, but from the grace with which you lift others up.